I am not a sit-down person, so you won't find me sitting down very often. If you do, more than likely my eyes are closed. I cannot watch a whole movie. My wife doesn't like me to get hold of the TV controllers. She says when I do, she doesn't really worry about it. She says in 5 minutes, she can watch what she wants to. So I'm not a sit-down person. We're going to do things a little bit different probably than normal. I'm not used to being in front of a crowd. I was told a couple years ago I was going to teach 200, but I didn't know how or why. So. But I was told it's going to be carpentry, so we're not going to talk about carpentry today. But I'll take the teaching part. I want to thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity to get up here and speak. He'll give me the wisdom and the patience and the time to work this thing through. Thank you, Brother Doug, for having the whatever it is called to let me come up here and speak. So, yeah, let me have the nerve to get see. We're going to see what he's going to say. So we're going to start out today with a first slide. I put a slide presentation together real fast last night. I'm not a computer person, so if things don't line up, we're not going to blame him. We're not going to blame him. So it's my fault. The title we're going to do is "Are You a Good Servant?" And this is going to be applied. This can be applied to your job, to your family, to many things. But in what we're going to talk about today is, are you a good servant in Christ? And these are all important things, but the number one thing is to always be a good servant to Christ, and all the rest will fall in place. Okay, slide number 2. Do you walk with Jesus? And this is what you need to do every day. This is not a Sunday thing. This is not a Wednesday night thing. This is every day. And then people wonder why their blessings don't come. It's because they're not walking with Jesus every day. They want to just do it on Sundays or when things are going bad. I want to talk to the Lord. You need to talk to the Lord all the time. Next slide. A servant. It's the one who serves. Jesus came to the earth and served the Father in heaven. Whatever Jesus said was what the Father said. It wasn't what he wanted to say. It wasn't what he felt like saying. I'm not saying he didn't feel like saying what the Father said, but it wasn't in his opinion of what he wanted to say. It was whatever the Father said. In the spiritual realm, there's only two to follow. You're either going to follow Christ or you're going to follow the devil. And in this world, there's a lot more things to follow, as in idols and things like that we get off track with. But in actuality, in the spirit world, there's only two things to follow. You're either going to follow Christ or you're going to follow the devil. On the next slide. Who do you serve? In John 12:26, it says, in King James Bible, it says, if any man serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, there shall also be my servant. And if any man serve me, him my Father will honor. It breaks it down a little bit better in the Amplified Bible. It says, if anyone serves me, he must continue to follow me and to cleave steadfastly to me, conform wholly to my example in living, and if need be in dying. And where I am, there will be my servant also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. These are things you got to remember, because a lot of people has the word talk, but they don't have the walk. And they wonder why, as I said earlier, why things don't work in their life. The next slide. Whose image do you reflect? When you're out in this world, whose image are you reflecting? The things you say, the things you do, when people see you. Is your reflection showing Christ? Is your reflection showing the devil? There's not, There's people that you can fool people for a little while, but you're not going to fool them forever. And there's a lot of people who wants to come to church and they put on this facade and they put on this sheep's clothing, but when they leave church, they live like hell. They live for the devil. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have a Christian walk. Christian walk is every day, same every day. And Christianity is a lifestyle. It's not a Sunday morning thing. It's not a Wednesday thing. All right, let's go to the next slide. Like I said, it's not his fault. Some of it's mine. We're going to break servant down to servant. Okay? Ants, there's just bunches of them. But if you ever look, each ant has got a job. And that's the way our service to the Lord is supposed to be. We're supposed to do what the Lord tells us to do. And then when everybody does their little parts of what the Lord tells us to do, it comes to big things. Having to look at my notes a little bit more than I thought I would ever. But in serving the Lord, there's just many of us, and we all got different things. I may speak a word that means something to somebody, but then another person may come along and speak a word that waters that word to make somebody else bring more to understanding. And then you may have another person come along, and it just might be the right time. That's when they're ready to break their life down and serve Christ. So it takes all of us. It's just not the preacher. He does have more responsibility on him to bring the word and to bring more things about salvation, but it's not all him. It's all about us, the Christians in the church. We're supposed to live it every day and bring it to people every day. Next slide. Where do you stand? Which ones of these are you like? I'm going to read both of these out of the Amplified Bible. In Hebrews 13:15 through 16, it says, "Through him, therefore, let us constantly and at all times offer up to God a sacrifice of praise, which is the fruit of our lips, that thankfully acknowledge and confess and glorify his name. Do not forget or neglect to do kindness and good, to be generous, distribute and contribute to needy of the church as embodiment and proof of fellowship. For these sacrifices are pleasing to God." These are the things that you're going to find Christians do. And we'll go drop over here in John 12, 42 and 43 in the Amplified. These are the things that people, we always call them hypocrites in the church. They came out, they put the facade on. They might have liked some of the word, but when they went out, they was afraid what their friends was going to say. So in John 12, 42 and 43, it says, "And yet, in spite of all this," it means that, they were showed so many things. "In spite of all this, many, even the leading men and the authorities and the nobles, they believed and trusted in God," or Jesus at this time, "but because of the Pharisees, their friends, they did not confess it." And that's the key to Christianity. You've got to confess it. And for fear that if they should acknowledge Jesus, they would be expelled from the synagogue. For they loved the approval and the praise and the glory that came from men, their friends, who they hung around with. They approved of that more than from God. So you need to think about these things. Is where do you stand? Is your approval? Are you wanting to please God? Are you wanting to please your friends, who you hang out with? Are you worried about what you're going to get said? Are you getting persecuted? I'm going to guarantee you, if you ain't got persecuted for standing for Christ yet, you've not stood up for Christ. Because you will get persecuted. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. But either way, you're going to get persecuted. Next slide. Are you serving Him from your heart? Are you serving Him out of habit or necessity? Do you come to church? Do you come to church to hear a word? Or do you come to church because, today's Sunday, 10 o'clock's church, I got to go, get my church duties in, and I'm going home. It's not serving the Lord. It's serving you. Serving life and the world. That's the way the world works. Do you change how you serve according to who you're hanging around with? If you're doing that, you're hanging around the wrong people or you're serving the wrong person. You got to make a decision. Next slide. As a servant, who do you go to? This is talking about when you're in troubles, in times. Well, really it talks about all the time. But who do you go to? Are you with Him all the time? It's with the Lord. You're with the Lord all the time? You with Him some of the time? But you only come to Him when things are really messed up. When you didn't do what you should have done. Things the Lord's put on your heart to do, and you didn't do them. And things get all messed up, and then you say, well, I don't understand. Then people want to blame God or blame Jesus for things going wrong in their life. Things going wrong in their life because they just didn't obey the Lord. That's one thing about the Lord and following the Lord in Christ. He doesn't make you do it. You're not made to do anything. That's your choice. And if you do it out of love because you want to, it'll come together. If you do it because you have to, it ain't going to work. Because you're having to. When you're having to do something, you're not in love about it. You're just having to do it. Your relationship with the Lord should be all the time. There's no part-time Christian. Christianity is like being pregnant. You either are or you ain't. It's just, you got to do it. That's the way it is. Next slide. Are you a good servant? Are you accountable? Are you responsible? It's part of being a servant. It doesn't matter if you're serving the Lord or serving your boss man at work or serving as, I'm kind of the middleman. I'm the boss, but I have boss. But I also have an employee, which is my servant. But are you being responsible in what you say you'll do? Same way with the Lord. You've got to be responsible. When He tells you to do something, do you do it? Or do you not do it? When the Master speaks to you, do you obey? Do you do what He says to do? Or do you grumble about it? That's even like at work, Your boss comes by and says, hey, I need this done. Yeah, okay. I hate that, man. That's not been a good servant. Same way with Christ. The Bible has the things we need to do in there and ways to live. But when the Spirit of God comes in you, it's there. It just automatically, you might go to do something, you're going, ugh. If you're getting that feeling, it means don't do it. And sometimes He'll tell you to do something, and you're saying, I'm not sure about this, Lord. But if He says if He tells you to do it again, then you put your trust in Him and you do it. It's part of being a good servant. Do you obey the Master? I guess I was going to make it 10 minutes because I really thought I'd go a little bit longer. But today is the day, if you're not serving the Lord, to start the rest of your life serving the Lord. Because it'll change the rest of your life. Your blessings come from obedience to the Word, not from what you want. If it seems like every day is full of something wrong, you need a new master. You need Jesus in your life. If you have Jesus as your master, are you serving him? You know, back in John 42, it said they believed and trusted in him, but they didn't confess him. That means they didn't follow him. They didn't do what he said to do. They just knew it was right to do. They just didn't do it. Are you them? You know, today is the day to change your life forever from now on. You live every day today. What you do today is what is in your future. And do you have the Lord in your life? Do you serve him? You're not serving with a lip, serving from the heart. That's all I got to say.